Hey everyone, Stu jumping in at the front here to let you know that this is a special bonus episode where we just chat about the first 20 episodes of Oops, All Apocalypse is. Because of that, there are a ton of spoilers, so if you have not listened to the first 20 episodes, prepare to be spoiled on every single thing that happens, which is pretty much the first thing we talk about. So, if you don't want to hear that, skip this one. Love you, bye. Welcome to Oops, All Talkpocalypses, a show where we talk about the apocalypse. This is a fun recap episode where we go through some of the things we've already experienced in these first 20 episodes. Can you guys believe it's been 20 episodes?
Let me just say, Stu, you were not kidding about making this one an explosive one.
Man.
Yeah. Every 20 episodes, explosion. That's the rule.
Nice.
Every 10?
You guys are a little ahead.
What happened to episode 10 now that I think about it? Was that a big episode?
That may have been the one where you threw a shovel in someone's chest.
Oh, I gotta check.
That was a good episode.
That might have been 14. I don't remember.
Let's kick this off by a quick recap of everything that's happened off the top of my head.
Let's just read every episode title, and we'll cover what it's a reference to.
Nope, that'll take way too long.
There's only 20.
Nope, this is going to be real quick. Ocean and Book are two friendly fellows who met each other in this underground apocalypse. They had some adventures before we recorded anything because we kind of came in after their relationship had blossomed to a good partnership. Things got off to a pretty rough start with Book getting kidnapped by a couple of chaos cultists. Ocean kind of saving him, but really only driving halfway there before his vehicle broke and taking out one of the cultists. They made it back while Book stole one of the Jeeps. You guys interrupt me when I forget anything at all because I'm not joking. This is all off the top of my head. When they stole one of the Chaos Cultist Jeeps and started off on their first kind of real adventure in our story, which was to recover a through-the-earth communication device for their friend that they made during that episode, Johnny Hertz, who is one of my favorite characters.
Also one of mine, and an associate of Frida in an unknown way.
Yes. They headed off to go collect this for Johnny Hertz. They learned it was being the TTE was owned by a local warlord named Crandall, who talks like a frog. On their way there, they met a good friend, Vesuvius.
My favorite character.
Which was a fast-talking redneck character who was quickly won over by their willingness to share beef jerky. When they made it to Crandall, they found a warlord who has a bunch of random bullshit that isn't actually useful, that it looks like he got from a Sky Mall catalog. They were able to trick him into accepting a trade with a mostly useless piece of equipment by quickly fashioning it into a useful screen for controlling Crandall's iTunes collection, which was the entire discography of Weird Al Yankovic.
And a massive electrical hazard.
Yes, and is not very safe. From that, they got the TTE and were safe to return to Hamlet Opening, the place they live. But unfortunately, they decided to go through the sewers and met a very horrific monster with visibly growing fingernails that was not fun for them to play with. They escaped it, made it back to Hamlet Opening, and gave the TTE to Crandall. That's what, 9 episodes?
Yep.
That was literally episode 9. I just read through it. Yeah. Episode 10 was us going
Episode 9 was Ocean throwing a shovel into someone's chest because episode 10 was Book dying.
Yes.
So yeah, every 10 episodes is a good one.
It's a very good episode. Everyone only listened to every 10 episodes. Back in Hamlet Opening, they hung out with some of their friends. They had some good chats with each other.
Someone named
but mostly,
Spade.
Yes, they met a very important character named Spade based on a mural that was painted presumably by a local underground artist named Frida, who makes cool graffiti art everywhere and seems to have a vaguely anti-authoritative message to try to spread. They tracked down this person, tried to figure out what their whole deal was, and didn't get anywhere with that.
That is true.
They then decided to start a revolution.
We did.
We got harassed.
Yeah, you completely forget the fact that
by another frog character.
Pistachio Jones decided that you owed him a small cut of your plundering, and you guys decided to make a very strong stand against that. That kicked off a revolution. as you use Johnny Hertz's radio equipment to radio to everyone and cause a standoff in the middle of town. That was resolved by Ocean, who frequently gets horrific visions, having a vision where he kicked a bunch of ass underground near some large sort of reactor thing. Unfortunately, he also played that out in real life and hurled a shovel through someone's clavicle, killed at least one person, and ran off towards Subtropolis. Book kind of calmed down that situation and then went searching for Ocean, who was not in Subtropolis at that time, but actually crying in his car.
It's probably our
In my
worst.
defense, he ran towards Subtropolis.
That was probably our absolute worst miscommunication we have had so far.
It was intentional on my part. Like, I knew that Ocean wasn't there, but I thought
we
it'd be
both
fun
knew,
because
but-
Book didn't know. That was the best acting I've ever done.
Book decided for no discernible reason to mess with that long fingernail monster yet again. It effectively killed him, but he was able to call for some wolves of the Maelstrom to attempt to save his life. Then he blacked out. Doesn't know what happened.
True.
Ocean went plundering after him and found a group of very high-tech equipped people driving yellow Humvees and wearing full bodysuits and helmets. He escaped them and found a mysterious tower that seemed to bloop and bloop out of existence. When he broke into there using a password that he found in his brain visions, he discovered a book hooked up to medical equipment, sleeping. They got out and after way too much conversation, made it towards Hamlet opening, where they ran into a Vesuvius that had a much deeper and sonorous Georgia gentleman voice, which immediately concerned them and threw them into a spiral of confusion that lasted at least 4 more episodes. Trying to track all that down, they asked all their friends if anything strange was happening, concerned that some sort of body-snatching entity was invading their town. They decided to send Vesuvius to go work with their mortal enemy, Hickory Fleek. Damn it. This is taking too long. I'm going to cut all of this.
It's good for us, though.
Their mortal enemy, Hickory Fleet, who took him on as one of his security guards because he was pretty good with a shot. They had some pre-existing business with Hickory that they were trying to work out and also wanted to warn him of the dangers of Vesuvius. So they decided to start poking around Hickory Fleet's main compound, which is a courthouse. While they're there, they found a shack that had some very advanced code written in it. They didn't figure that out till they came back and forth a few times, but they figured out there was an AI that was written by presumably Book's mother to combat an AI that was controlling the town or the city of Subtropolis' power, to try to trick it into giving Hamlet opening enough power for these people to be happy and cool. When they came back to really dig into that, they accidentally got a little bit discovered, drawing Vesuvius into the building, where his torso exploded, taking out most of the building. They took his head, which was still alive and working, and was a pretty big hint that things may not be all normal with him, and escaped back to try to recover. Since then, they decided to go solve their problem and figure out once and for all what is going on with Vesuvius and Crandall. So they headed back into Subtropolis, ran into the real Vesuvius, who talked like normal and was very surprised to see this head that looked just like him, and got reintroduced to Crandall, who seemed pretty normal, except for the fact that he has been receiving some instructions from a mysterious printer that prints off exactly what he should retrieve, where it's at, and in exchange for that, he's allowed to get things from various catalogs. While they were there, they were interrupted by the yellow Humvee people, who started assaulting the complex, blew up a bunch of the building, and the tide was quickly turned by Ocean coming around the corner with a very large machine gun he had borrowed from Crandall. They pushed them off and have resecured Crandall's building for now, with probably a few dead people. And that's where we're at right now on episode 21.
Well, you missed the fact that Ocean may apparently be one of the yellow Humvee people.
Yeah, maybe. You've had a vision where you kind of looked a little bit like them, and you just now were in a vision of Book where he was looking into the psychic maelstrom, and he saw a giant wolf of the maelstrom tackle him to save his life from a rocket coming to kill him.
A lot happened last episode. Good God.
And I do want to say, the first time that Book opened his mind to the psychic maelstrom, he saw one of the wolves investigate Ocean's body.
Oh my God, I forgot all about that.
So my first question for you, Stu, is: was Ocean always a wolf of the maelstrom in your planning?
He's definitely involved with them in some way,
Yeah.
I would say.
Was that influenced by my unlocking the mystery about whether the psychic maelstrom was man-made or not?
No.
Okay.
I would say he was always going to be somewhat involved with it, just because I was interested
I very much agree.
Again, I'm not saying he is or is not exactly a wolf or exactly
I
these
mean,
people
he
yet.
was
I
a
don't
wolf
think.
last episode.
Yes, he's definitely involved in some way, I think, and I've always had that as a good idea. I didn't make it happen until obviously last episode, but
It makes sense, honestly.
I agree. I think it was clear from the wolf like poking around at Ocean's body that there was definitely like an interest there. But as far as like the man-made aspect of the psychic maelstrom goes, like does that influence your interpretation of what the wolves
yeah,
are and like how you
yeah,
determine?
oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, no, oh, I think that's a good thing to talk about. So I didn't have an answer to that question until you asked that question. Definitely
Okay.
and I think I only said that it was man-made because you thought it was the other one. I believe I just did contrary to what your opinion was at the time and went with that. All of the AI shit, all the robots and that stuff, all came from one thing, one single roll that happened, I think, in episode 2. And it was a roll I wasn't even going to have you guys make, but you guys were just paranoid, where you were leaving Crandall's place. At that point, you had, like, in my brain, you had finished the mission accomplished. I was going to let you guys just walk back all the way to Hamlet opening and finish
really?
it. Because I was trying to rush through that part. Because this was back when I was more concerned about how long is a session and things like that.
Right.
So I was trying to, like, end the session. And was like, maybe even do it that episode, like do the end of session moves.
wow.
Because that was like your first expediture out. And you guys were like, I want to read the situation. And one of the questions you asked, I just pulled out of my ass that there was a very high def camera that was looking at you guys. And then after that session, I'm like, why would Crandall have a really high def camera there? I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. He doesn't need any of that. So I was like, okay, someone's watching Crandall. Who would have a really high def camera? That all evolved into there's some crazy AI shit going on.
Man, wow. We are our own
Yeah.
worst enemies.
I assumed that Crandall just was surveillance.
Yeah,
his own
the
place.
whole reason I was so paranoid back then was I thought Crandall was trying to backstab us. That's the
So
whole
you were
reason.
hiding Vesuvius's head. We should have been hiding your head walking past the camera.
Oh God, yeah.
Wow.
So I guess that ties into my first question that I asked, and this has been a question that I've been curious about, and I thought would be very fun to discuss ever since you made this reveal to us. And the question is, what big things were literal and what were figurative in our initial psychic maelstrom rolls? Because you were like, I gotta clarify, you guys, it's a metaphor, and that was like session 18. So prior to then,
Yes, that's fairly recently.
what big things did we completely take as literal that were figurative?
Yeah.
And what big things did we just completely gloss over that were literal things we were seeing?
And I would like to add an addendum to that question, because we've seen wolves of the maelstrom as wolves outside of the psychic maelstrom, but then we've also seen wolves of the maelstrom as wolves inside of the psychic maelstrom, but they don't look like wolves outside of the psychic maelstrom, aka Ocean last episode.
So the wolves are nebulous and ill-defined. And when they were outside of the psychic maelstrom, they just looked like furry ass creatures, right? And then when you were inside of it, you saw them kind of
Smoky,
peel back they
and
opened
there's
their
a
mouth
person.
too wide, peeled back, and a humanoid person came out,
Yes.
right? That was the first time you experienced them. So that was like some of their like shapeshifter kind of nature.
Okay.
They're not exactly what they seem, more like that. So that's both figurative
Okay.
and literal in that example. Stuff like Ocean's visions are a weird one because some of it I'm just trying to come up with shit that may have happened in his past that is interesting to hear. And then while other things I want to throw in some more metaphorical elements, like the vision you had with a bunch of that same person repeated in a bunch of rooms. That was someone you loved that was in a place of incomprehensible technology.
Yeah,
I
something
think
like that.
was the vision you asked for. And you said incomprehensible technology right when we were dealing with the AI in the tower. And I was like, oh, that'd be a cool idea to start talking about some clone stuff. That would put some fear in them. At that point, I had no intention of introducing fake Suvius in the next probably 10 episodes. And I ended up introducing him like the next episode, I think. Probably a mix between we actually had that vision where I talked about it, and then also you guys just kept failing rolls to get out of Subtropolis, and I was tired of it and wanted you back in the town. So I was like, well, here's a real big failure I can just throw at them and say, you made it back, but there's a big problem. There's a big complication. There's this guy who's clearly not who he seems. And that was a question we got from a couple people actually was, did I just fuck up Vesuvius's voice? And did that turn into... that whole thing was I just feeding off of the paranoia of Book/Brady to make that a storyline. And that's not fully true. No, I just thought the first time I made Vesuvius's voice randomly, that's a character I just came up with on the spot. I was like, they should need a guard. Came up with a random ass name off the top of my head, gave him a redneck voice because that's easy to do. And after I did that, I was like, it'd be really funny if suddenly his voice just changed to something entirely different, but also still Southern. And I was like, nah, I'm going to make it more complicated than that, throw an extra character in there. But I would say normally when I was running a game, I would have gone way more with the direction that Book was leaning. Like when he was coming up with his own connections, I think normally a good DM would just go, okay, yeah, that is right, in some ways, and add some like complicating matters in it. Unfortunately, I had basically already cemented that it had to be an AI thing controlling this.
Right, yeah.
Which
I liked that I was wrong.
definitely
Because, like, when I made those connections, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense.
I was about to say, I like the fact that we are going down a completely wrong rabbit hole. But at the same time, there were still plenty of clues that we should have figured out, but we were just so hyper fixated on those small things.
I don't remember any AI clues.
Okay, I don't necessarily know about AI clues, but I think there were clues that we completely missed about Vesuvius's true nature. Speaking of, that actually brings us to the next question. What foreshadowing did you put in there for Vesuvius wanting to blow up the place? Because you said there were several clues that we missed, and the big one you said was the one where where it was like very obvious that we didn't even have to roll when it was to come investigate the server room. But were there any others?
Yeah, I can't remember if I said that on air, but yeah, when you guys were walking by the server room, you made some good jokes about how it was bullshit that Ocean didn't even have to roll to convince him to go into that server room, and that was just because for some reason he wanted to go in there, and it was to get information about that thing. He didn't really understand that, I think, is the way it kind of
subconscious,
works.
purely
I want to keep
subconscious.
him. He's so likable. I don't want him to be a bad guy. He's such a cool dude. So it had to be subconscious. It couldn't be his ulterior motives or anything like that.
Yeah.
I made a lot of jokes about him not being wired that way and things like that. Anytime I could, I made jokes that were related to him being an actual robot, even though you guys already did think he could be a robot. I did that a lot. And then to me, again, I'm biased because I realized where it came from. But if I was making Book's crazy person board, I would have put that high def camera on there and been like, why is he like this? Or something like, why does Crandall have such weird shit? Like, those things to me are both.
Yeah, that's interesting.
We kind of were wondering that. Yeah.
I just assumed he was just an eccentric guy.
That is true too.
And paranoid. Like if I was a warlord, I would put a camera on my gate, you know?
But it was facing weird. It was facing towards the front.
Yeah.
I was about to say, it wasn't looking at, like, it wasn't like your typical camera where you spy on people. It was more like it was monitoring the inside of its own place.
Which is why the fake body of Book had a super good version of the back, because you walked in not giving a fuck. But when you guys came out, you wisely hid your bodies in a good way.
Ooh.
I didn't put that together.
Yeah, so it only had a view of your back at all. And if you guys waited a bit and didn't like care about any of this weird shit, like if you ignored Crandall and started doing other stuff, if you're like, let's go find my parents and left, you would have gotten eventually maybe a book that was like a little bit better and shit like that. But it would have not been super convincing as being you. I never had an idea of doing you're actually the robot all along thing. I think that would have been really cool and interesting, but it also would have been a little bit too out there for a player. You would have handled it well.
I would have had a blast with it. I would have
you would have had
so
a lot
much
of fun with it.
Like imagine if we found my parents and there was already a book with my parents.
Dude, don't give them ideas. Don't give them ideas. Yeah, I feel like one thing that's super obvious in hindsight that I think we were close to figuring this out, but we were harping on it for the wrong reasons, was the Crandall picking things up that were weird, that were not things that he would normally pick up, that were like cool stuff. We were like, oh shit, has Crandall been strange? What's going on with Crandall? What's changed about him to where he went from picking up all these goofy things to now being much more weird, eccentric things that his people didn't understand? Right. We were thinking like, oh shit, Crandall's been replaced. What's going on with Crandall here? Vesuvius, we got fake Vesuvius now. Is there a fake Crandall? And we were so fixated on that, I guess we didn't even think of the most obvious answer, that Crandall isn't gathering things for himself. He's being told to get stuff. Because when we met Crandall, he doesn't seem like the sharpest tool in the shed. So Why would he be having all this shit?
I mean, I assumed he was picking up the stuff for someone else. I just assumed that he was also being literally puppeted by that person,
Yeah.
as opposed to figuratively puppeted
Yeah.
with the dot, with what is it called?
The dot matrix printers.
Dot matrix. Yeah. That was super interesting. As far as the doppelganger situation goes, I was expecting this to become like an like a secret invasion thing, not the TV show but the comic, where like it starts being revealed that there are already doppelgangers in place. So I was expecting more of like an invasion as opposed to like this was a sniper.
Yeah,
like this
is a single guy being sent for a single purpose to manipulate us into putting him where he needs to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So how I deal with that sort of distinction on the MC side of things is basically every threat that exists has an idea of what I write out is what that threat would do if you guys just pissed off and didn't care about it. So that's like the end of the clock for if you guys ignored what was going on with all the Crandall AI stuff, then they would start infiltrating the town. They'd start replacing people, and that would be your only experience with it. It'd be like way too late. But you guys decided to interact with it much more early, try to look for the tower, met the yellow Humvee people, all that sort of stuff. So they didn't get basically far along their plan, while other stuff you're ignoring is getting more into that dangerous area.
Like the boxcar children.
It's like a choose your own adventure of what thing's going to really screw you later.
I was about to say, we can only focus on one thing, so we can always progress the track a little bit, delay it for
Folks'
others.
parents are being tortured as we speak.
Yeah, but who knows what horrible things are happening that are just going to explode on us. So that's, I guess, another question that I thought would be kind of fun to talk about, because, again, I think this is all stuff that we might have talked about at a session, but talking on it on air with everybody listening and just getting a peek around the corner. I always find this kind of stuff interesting whenever I'm listening to a D&D podcast or whatever. I like the talking about behind the scenes stuff, because this is like the first game I've played in a million years. I am normally a forever DM, so I like the DMing, peeking around and stuff. But what big things have you planned that has occurred, and what big things have you just pulled straight out of your ass so far?
I plan very little in general. Like the main things I plan are scenes that I think would be cool and dramatic and fit apocalyptic media really well. So like I always knew I was going to force you to actually commit violence on people during one of your visions. I was like, I didn't know when. It could be anywhere, but you gave me a good opportunity with a role that wasn't fully successful for me to do that, and it ended up being the best.
That's a perfect timing for it.
That could have been a very lame time. Like there could have been some other lame.
It was a great fail. It was a great time for a fail.
Yeah. So most of my planning is waiting for good moments like that to more naturally come up. Like something as big as the server room exploding. I kind of knew that could be an option when I think between the session before that and then. I was like, that would only happen if they fail super bad though, which is exactly what happened. I did not expect that at all. I thought you guys were going to definitely be able to come back, and Book was right that was exactly what Hickory wanted to work on anyway. But I thought you guys were most likely just going to get like captured or something like that. The cheese monster, which you guys unfortunately call him, was literally just supposed to be an example of things the Psychic Maelstrom crazy monsters that happen to spawn because of it are created from this weird environment, that there's all this strange psychic energy passing around, creating these horrific beasts. So that was never intended to be a very big thing. I was like, I came up with it while you guys were in the sewers the first time. And then it was definitely a heavy focus because I didn't make the connection between having a kind of deformable face and there being an actual clone of someone, which I think is a reasonable connection to me.
So, yes. And from my perspective, I also felt like Book, because he is that mystery obsessed person, like he would not be able to let go of the monster that he saw. It would haunt his dreams. He needs to know why it's there, like all this stuff. So I was like, no, we have to go back. We have to go back because it's there. Yeah. And he can see it again if he wants to, and he does.
Which I wanted you guys to do because I wanted you to fight it better.
Yeah, we just kind of fled, crushed his fingers and ran.
Yeah, I thought that'd be a cool fight, but then you went back by yourself.
The one character who just cannot fight was left to fight.
But I tried to, I guess this is one kind of tying back to the previous question and this one. That was one of the clues I kept trying to give, is I kept intentionally wording it from Vesuvius as horrors of the Maelstrom instead of you experiencing the actual Maelstrom when you had that confusion, to try to get you guys to be like, what do you mean by that? Because in a lot of people's minds, especially certainly Vesuvius's, that weird shit would just be a horror of the Maelstrom, not necessarily you guys going into the Maelstrom, which was one of the things you guys kind of hung on to, was like, how did he know we were there?
I see.
But to him, that's just, oh yeah, the weird monster with the crazy nails, that's a horror.
And he knew that because he was made by the Wolves of the Maelstrom, who saved me from the monster.
Hey, and with that knowledge, you can throw more creepy crawly creatures at us, and we'll now realize, okay, this is just a real horrible thing.
Oh no, I've been thinking of some new cool
There's
creatures.
a big octopus. I drew up a couple of
octopus
concept creatures that I sent to Stu as well. And I realized after the fact that there's literally a character. There's a character sheet that literally lets you create animals. Like, where is it? I was just looking at it, and I was like, that should have been me.
You almost played that class. You almost did.
I was like, that would have been great, because I could have come to Stu. I could have come to each recording with like a new drawing of something that we could fight.
Wow, I can't remember what that one's called. It's a cool one, but no, that was your actual first idea for a character. Was that one, and then you ended up switching because you wanted to be more sleuthy. The rest of
my first idea for a character was going to be a tinkerer. I was going to be a tinkerer, and I think I was going to be like a female tinkerer too. So I went in the complete opposite direction.
If you die, that'd be really cool.
I went that way because when literally just on the spot from, I think we briefly discussed it, and I was like, that sounds like an interesting class, but I still hadn't decided. But when Book basically was becoming like a less physical, more smart, more charismatic, dealing with people better, can figure things out, puzzle solvey kind of person, I was like, okay, we can't have two of those. That's too boring.
I think it would have been fine. Because it would have put us into like really, would have had to get really creative.
We wouldn't have been able to fight. But I think because I didn't make that situation, I'm very happy with the character I made, and I think our characters are. I'm very happy with our characters for this game.
I am too.
Yeah, I like both of your characters a ton. I think the combination of your two playbooks is possibly the coolest.
I agree.
Where it's someone who's obsessed with mysteries and then someone whose whole background is mystery. Like that ties very well.
I think it's about to start tying together even more now that Book is becoming more involved with Ocean's mysteries.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Frida right now. And I know you can't answer this, but I want to know why the fuck she took that thing so bad.
Yeah, just some background. I told the players this afterwards, but so that whole thing was because of a move that had a negative consequence forever ago. I don't even remember specifically what move at this point, but I never adjudicated it. So I was just like, I'm going to move one of these ticks, one of these threat things further along. And that was what happened. So I decided at that point to make that happen. You guys will learn soon.
Okay.
It'll come up pretty quick.
Okay.
That's cool.
So how do you guys like the system in general? Apocalypse World.
I love Apocalypse World.
I think it's great.
Are there any things you find annoying or
I think
wish were done a little different?
No. As far as the system itself, absolutely not. I think it's great. The thing that I find frustrating is that everything is sort of documented sporadically. So as far as like finding what you need and like tracking all of the different moves and sub moves. And I know that they account for that and they say like, hey, if this is too much, like don't even worry about it. But I'm one of those people who like I like to make use of all of the things at my disposal, and so like knowing that there are things on the table that I can't keep track of is frustrating.
So we're playing a just kind of written addition to second edition. So it's not even like a full ass thing. There's a kind of annoying combination of the rules are anything we read in the rulebook supersedes second edition, but if not, you have to go read second edition to understand it. So it makes it hard, very easy to miss things and hard to know where those distinctions are. I think the creator, Vincent Baker, said he's going to I think there's a third edition maybe coming that should roll in some of these things. I'm not sure. I really hope there is. And if there is, we'll get it and we can switch to it immediately. But I like it. This is the first time I've played Burned Over. I've played Apocalypse World first and second edition before and like them a lot, but I like some of the changes he made in this. They're all pretty in the weeds. The reason I like them are all pretty in the weeds and technical, but I like all the playbooks are cool. Most of the changes I think are positive. I'd recommend anyone playing Apocalypse World to just start with Burned Over, and I would recommend more people to play it because it's super good.
You've been enunciating Burned Over really well.
I've been trying very hard.
I can tell because you paused for half a second before you say it.
That's all going to be edited out, so I sound smooth and smooth.
I like a little bit of crunch in my games. I'll be honest. I do like that Pathfinder second edition, 3.5 D&D, that kind of stuff with the, I like that. I like the crunch and doing stuff. But I've always felt it doesn't really work very well in a visual medium, like in a non-visual medium, like over a podcast or stuff. I know there's a lot of like appeal for like D&D podcasts and stuff, but for me, the moment you pull out like minis like Grid or anything like that, it starts getting really hard to follow, especially combat when you're listening. So
Yeah.
I think
no, combat can grind to a halt with a lot of D&D podcasts.
Yeah, I hate the
Yeah.
6-second system.
yeah, so I feel like purely one I do like the storytelling aspect of like RPGs probably more than anything else ultimately. So I love that on the powered by the Apocalypse systems. That's kind of the highlight. I like that it kind of forces you to have ties to the other players from the beginning. So many games, it's like it's just four completely unrelated people that are just there because they met in a bar and that's their connection. With the Apocalypse world, everyone is kind of forced to have some tie to the other to make for an more interesting beginning. But also, it's a lot easier to follow when you're listening. There's no dice. You don't really even have to pay much attention to the dice. You can just hear us groan and moan and complain when things go poorly.
Yeah, the only thing I ever worry about are when there's like a list of things you can choose from. But I think we repeat them enough. And again, that doesn't really matter. That like as long as you guys are saying what you're choosing, like you could, if you didn't understand the system, you could just listen to us talking and be like, oh, they can ask him any three questions and they just happen to choose these three weird ones. Why are they wording them so dumb?
Yeah, it's
But
so
those
much,
are all from a list.
it just intrinsically leads better to like an auditory medium of Apocalypse World and Powered by the Apocalypse games because it's just like a collaborative story.
Yeah.
I think it's distilled down more than most other systems where it's just like a collaborative story and the DM has tools and the players has tools to kind of spur the story in whatever way they want. It's very flexible.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about it is that like the DM is exclusively adjudicating our roles as opposed to, acting with his own, not his own agency, but you know what I mean. Whereas in D&D it's like I'm rolling to hit you, you're rolling to dodge, then you're rolling to hit me, and I'm rolling to dodge, and then it all happened in the last 6 seconds, but it has to happen in order. So, it just gets I appreciate the system. I know why it exists, but at the same time, I'm like, why does it have to be like? I don't know. I just feel like that's not how things happen. Not that it has to be realistic, but like it's not how it works.
I think you kind of hit on this for a second, but it made me remember one of the reasons like so in D&D and most D20 systems, I can make a dragon that has plus 50 to hit you, and it's going to hit you. Like you can find enemies that are too strong for you and things like this. The way these systems work, they're like completely self-balancing, where you can take on whatever you want, and if you're good at your rolls, it's going to be successful. Like it requires a kind of agreement with the players to not do absolutely insane stuff, which that's why I chose you two specifically, because I didn't think either of you would do that too often. But I know that can be a big ask in some. That can be a big ask in some of the D&D games I've played, where people do try to do absurd things, even though, because that's I don't know. Like if you took some of those players and threw them in this system, I think it would not run well. It would be. You guys have everyone has to agree you're trying to create a good story without having ideas for how that story's planned out. And let's just do things that make that happen, which to me is easier than D&D. I like I mentioned, I plan very little of this out. I just have kind of a few ideas in my brain and it all rolls together and becomes solidified as we play. Like, oh, here's this new thing that there have been a few things that tie together. I should make a thread that fits that into one neat little bucket. While like running a module from a book to me is miserable and difficult and hard. And I feel like my brain has to obtain all of the information in that book and then present it back in a good way, which I don't like doing.
I think a really cool distinction as well is that like when in D&D, when you break character and you're discussing like, oh, what spell slots you have left and like all of this stuff, like it gets very like there's a lot of metagaming involved, and I feel like it's really hard to do in Burned Over because you're just like, what does your character want to do? You either do it or you don't. And when Jacob and I do sort of try to collaborate and like figure out what we're doing next, like it's usually honestly like I feel like 90% of the time we break character, it's for read a situation rolls, and I'm like, what do I want to know?
What do we want to figure out here?
And the nice thing about that is that it works out of character because you're determining what you want your character to notice, not necessarily the necessarily like the best action for them to take. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, like you hit it very clearly in when the servers exploded, and you were like, if I shot him in the chest, would it have stopped? I can't remember if I cut that from the episode or not. No, I left it in. Yeah, I left it in. If I shot him in the chest, would it have been changed anything? And the real answer, like you said, is if you rolled good, yeah. If you rolled a full success on streams. So what the fiction changes based on, like, it's easy to hear all this and go, choices don't matter. It's just how good you roll. But that's really not it, because the fiction does change and the actual situations you're in impacts what that success actually means. Shooting him in the chest is very different than tackling him. But if you tackle him on a full success, I'm probably not going to explode you to death, even though that may make sense for exactly what's going on. Like there's a bomb counting down and he tackles him in one.
Yeah, he might have tackled him really well, and that would have gave him a couple more seconds to get in, pull the shirt off, and see exactly what was going on, and maybe tinker with something to defuse it. Or
yeah, exactly. It would be something like that, where and if you shot him in the chest, maybe it would have like a full success may have just stopped it, and a mixed success may have stopped it and killed him, which could have been just as bad from your perspective as where we're at now, with an exploded thing and no proof of a weird Vesuvius.
Yeah, we could have lost our Vesuvius. Well, I think it also, our fake Vesuvius.
It's the difference between, like, Vesuvius doesn't roll to hit, so it's like me rolling bad is the same thing as an enemy rolling well in D&D, and it's just a different interpretation of it. And I think that also kind of circles back to, like, sometimes no matter how hard you try, things don't go your way. So
that's a really cool, I think we just talked about this recently off air, but that's a really cool self-balancing aspect of Powered by the Apocalypse, where as a DM I can just ask for more and more rolls to make things harder and harder.
Or easier.
I used to do that all the time. Yeah, or less rolls to make it easier. I used to do that all the time in our Monster of the Week game, Jacob, where if a fight was going too well, I'm just, make them roll more. Like, that happened very explicitly when you guys were trying to escape after the exploded server room, where you guys only did one roll, but I did that intentionally because I knew the situation you guys were at. You both had 1 health. Any mixed success basically meant you were going to be caught or dead. And then any full success means you got out. Or if you only got full successes, that means you got out. So to me, it was a pretty binary result anyway. There's 2 places the story can go. They either escape or get caught, or I guess die. Both die, which is really the same as them both getting caught and they come back weirder. Because of that, I was like, okay, you're going to just do 1 roll to try to escape, so we don't have to do a roll for getting out of the fence, do a roll for finding where the best place to go is, do a roll for getting there without being seen. Like, all that stuff isn't that interesting. Like, in some circumstances, it could be interesting. If you guys were completely healthy and trying to get out quickly, that's where tension can come from. But when you're on the edge of dying and 1 single mixed success causes you to get caught, might as well just make it 1 and see, is it this or the other?
See what happens.
Both rolled over 10. Both killed it, which is not what I expected. I was completely ready for you guys to get caught.
That was probably the best, luckiest roll that we probably ever got.
And I think last episode made up for it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Speaking of, like, failures and stuff, that's another thing. And in a lot of games, when you fail, it kind of drags things to a grinding halt. Like, that means you didn't do something. You can't do it, or you failed at doing it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think the different approaches have their different pros and cons. But in a system where the rules are really just kind of meant to exist to kind of help you tell a collaborative story, the way Powered by the Apocalypse does it, where even failing a roll moves the plot and the story forward rather than changes things. So no matter what happens, something is going to occur that's going to make something go on. Like, you could fail a roll and still succeed in whatever the task you were trying to do was. It's just now you have a huge problem that arised from you succeeding. Like, instead, like D&D, you try and kick down a door, you roll your strength, you get a poor check. You can't break down the door. You kick it, thuds, nothing happens. This one, you try and kick down the door. You roll poorly. You kick down the door, it splinters and shatters. You now have the door open, but your leg has a gaping wound, and everybody in the dungeon knows that you're there. Right. So,
or like, even worse, like in D&D, if you're like trying to kick down a door and your party is just taking turns trying to kick down the door.
Everyone tries to kick the door
so
open.
It's just 6, strength rolls in a row.
We just entered a new dungeon room. Everybody take turns rolling perception checks. See what happens.
Exactly. Or you're passing around your new item and everyone's rolling Arcana.
Can I read it? And then as a DM for like D&D style games, I let my experiences with Powered by the Apocalypse certainly flavor the way I run games, but like two common DM issues in D&D are either the not being flexible at all with what your players want to do versus what you expected them to do. So, my players want to go sneak through this dungeon and do like a heist versus when I expected them to kick in the door and try to kill these people. If they are trying to sneak and there's no way for that to happen and there's enemies where you had them set up for an actual combat and it just doesn't work, that's just you not being flexible, but that's kind of how the system's made, so it's not really your fault. And then DMs do the like quantum troll thing where I want them to do a troll fight, the left door there's a troll behind it, or the right door there's also a troll behind it. Your choices don't actually matter, where in these PBTA games it's the opposite, where the players go, I want to try to sneak, and I rolled good on my sneaky. What is behind that door remelds to be a good way for them to sneak through it.
A sleeping three-headed
So it's
dog.
very interesting.
And I don't want this to be like a me shitting on D&D.
Shit on D&D.
I like D&D a lot.
I love D&D a lot. It's so much fun. It just has different strengths. Every system has different strengths and pros and cons. D&D is more crunchy. It's more playing. It feels more like you're playing an actual game, and I think that's the appeal.
And the combat's way more cunning.
Yeah, I think that's the appeal of D&D, is that you are physically sitting down and you're essentially playing an interactive board game storytelling kind of thing, which is fun. It's got its own appeal. It doesn't do as well in the storytelling medium because the rules kind of make it hard to do so. You can still tell great stories with D&D. There is no system that you can't do anything you want, really. It's just different systems make it easier to do certain things.
Yeah.
Just the way rules are cut. If I really wanted to, I can do a D&D session where I haven't planned out a single thing. We do it Powered by the Apocalypse style. Depending on their roles, things change and blah, 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 blah. They're rolling less. I make it so they have a consequence, or they fail a roll. That means they still have move the start. You can do it, but it's just the rolls. It's a lot more stuff that you got to come up with on the fly than a system that's intrinsically designed to be come up with on the fly. So different pros and cons. Different people like different things.
You can never run a PBTA game where you wrote this wonderful, beautiful story with 3-act structure and the players hit this story beat, then this story beat, then this one. But you could do something like within D&D. I still wouldn't personally like to run it or play it, but you could do that.
I think my least favorite thing about Apocalypse World is also my favorite thing about it, which is the damage clock. I find it inconstructible. I don't understand it, but at the same time, I love my favorite thing about Apocalypse World is that your characters don't somehow get better at surviving the same amount of damage over time.
Yeah.
You know? Like you can get armor, but like I guess like when I'm a child, I'm maybe more fragile than I am as an adult. But once you're 20, you're pretty much as sturdy as you're ever gonna get.
Yeah, you probably get less sturdy as you get older. So
this may not be seamlessly cut into the rest of the episode because we just took a very long break, but we're back to Talking Apocalypse.
A week and a day, baby.
Anyone remember what we were talking about?
Nope.
I don't.
I still have some questions that I've been accumulating, but I
think
heard,
Jacob has a question.
I heard that Jacob had a very big question.
I was thinking this as I was walking out of work yesterday. I realized Frida doesn't like us very much. And I was like, why the hell does Frida not like us? And Stu, you said something along the lines of it has something to do with something we did earlier. My theory, and I don't know if you can confirm this or not because it's still technically plot relevant, but I'm just sharing it here. Is Frida mad at us because we broke the Queen of Spades' mind?
That does tie into one of my questions, actually. I can't answer that fully, but is there anything I've gotten some questions about? What are some major things you would take back if you changed anything? Like if you made any blunders or mistakes that you regretted in the future? And I was interested in your guys' opinions on that.
Nope.
Nothing?
I would take back breaking the Queen of Spades' mind.
Nope.
Yeah, that's what I would take back too.
She was a threat, and I handled it.
I would take that back in a heart.
I handled it.
Book handled it in the only way he knows how. It's handled, for sure.
Is she still on the threat map?
Yes. Just a different type of threat.
Oh, God.
I feel like now we have all the answers we want to give her, so maybe she'll go back to normal.
Maybe.
And then I'll tell her a different secret.
Oh, God.
Tell them a different secret.
No, I think the only things I regret are very not being harsher on you guys, probably.
I agree with that. I think
Well,
you
yeah,
should
those are
have
the
been
only
meaner.
things I ever take back. Or
What
like
would you
times
say
that-
you would have been harsher on us in hindsight on of what we did?
Maybe more damage when that explosion happened.
Oh,
Like,
so you would have killed us both.
yeah,
Because we were both one. I think we
yeah,
were both
I
like
like
one
where it
harm
went from
away.
there. So I don't think it hurt anything, but I think it would have been interesting. Yeah, more sudden violence, I would say, would probably be the only times I would ratchet things up. But I've liked where everything's gone with that. And I usually don't think about it too much. I don't like care if you guys are going to die because you can die a few times.
Yeah, it's honestly really generous how many times you can die.
Yep. So basically, if you don't know the system very well, which is almost everyone listening, when you die, just like Book did previously, yeah, you basically can come back with a few different options. And the one he took, it literally is only a bonus. It increases his weird. Most of them are more detrimental. Like you can lose hard, I believe, or you can come back as a different playbook.
A lot of people
but-
already have that as a problem.
Yeah.
Ooh, damn. Ooh, yikes. We're definitely not getting sponsored by Hims now. Or maybe we will be sponsored by Hims now.
Yeah.
Another question we've been getting is, what are we going to do after the story? Or usually phrased in the way of, don't stop recording. It feels like you guys are wrapping up towards something, which we're not, first of all. We're in the middle of a bunch of
Yeah,
crazy
I was about to say, I
shenanigans.
don't think we're anywhere near wrapping
Oh,
anything
yeah.
up at this point.
I think we're less than halfway done with. I would say we're like a third of the way done with the first part of Book and Ocean story.
Yeah, I
if
was
had
gonna
to
say
guess.
we haven't even really reached our inciting incident yet.
Yeah,
I think there have been some inciting incidents.
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
like we have to go somewhere, and we haven't gone anywhere yet. Something has to something has to motive like the hero the hero's call. We need that.
I swear I thought we were going to be exiled by Hickory. I thought that
So
was
did I.
something that was going to happen when we... Well, I mean, that still very well could happen, considering what we have done, but
I don't know why you guys want to leave Hamlet opening so much.
I don't want to leave Hamlet opening. That's why I was
That's
100%
your whole character's
confident
thing
you
is you
wanted
want to go
exile.
deeper.
Yeah, and you want to
Yeah.
go up. We both
Yeah,
want to go
exactly.
elsewhere.
That's the thing. We have to
That's true.
have the hero's call. We have to reject the hero's call, and then we have to get it again and take it.
That is
Well, you
true.
guys have rejected
And then we
a
have to
lot of
do
things.
Star Wars.
I think you couldn't be more wrong.
And then Obi-Wan is going to kill our parents and blame it on the stormtroopers.
Oh shit, I didn't hear that part of the Star
And
Wars
then it's
story.
going to kidnap us and take us to Han Solo.
This is a very different Star Wars than I remember.
Basically, the end of the story gets kicked off by the players, actually. It's one of your improvements, is when you can start unlocking a game changer, right?
Yep. Which
think
I
so,
think
yeah.
I am now able to do.
Really?
So yeah,
Because I have 5 improvements.
yep. So you can start getting those advanced improvements, and one of them is unlocking the game changer, which there are a lot of ways that happens, and it's not like you take that and the story ends, but a significant event basically happens. You move forward more quickly at that moment. So that kind of does put somewhat of a clock on it. But what's my plan for when that happens is we're gonna just continue on to a different story, maybe in a more different view of the apocalypse, depending on where this goes. But I plan on sticking with Book and Ocean past that, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys can change playbooks and stuff like that.
Yeah, because that is one of your isn't oh yeah.
I think
But one of the game changers is switch playbooks, right?
No, that's one of your advanced improvements.
so. I think my absolute favorite game changer is that you pick the one that says the DM is now a player and now you are the DM.
Yeah.
That one sounds terrible to me. I hate it.
Jacob wants your jobs too.
I do
He's
want your
coming
job.
after it.
No,
Done
no.
for
I
my
figured.
job.
I figured if we would ever, I have no plans on replacing Stu. I figured if we ever had a season 2 or something like that in a different setting or something, maybe we could have a different DM in that case. But
Yeah, I think
something
that'd
that
be fun,
wouldn't.
rolling
That's
around.
not related to this story. Like,
Oh no, you return to a new playbook. You can do that when you die.
yep.
You can also do it as an advanced improvement, I think.
I can't. Maybe other players can.
Okay, another question we got is what's with all of the names of our episodes being random bullshit? Can you guys answer that?
So I have really good ideas, and then Stu says no, it has to be music related, and then Jacob comes up with a great idea that's also music related.
Yeah. The thing
usually how
is,
it goes.
Stu and I have a lot of weird knowledge about different musics and songs and stuff, and we just like using music lyrics as titles. And Brady comes up with a clever title, and we're like, yeah, but this music lyric is a little bit more relevant.
However,
Brady
Hurt-
did come up with the
Hurt
best
by
one.
9 Inch Nails was all me.
That was a great
Yes.
one. That was
And that was
great
actually our
one.
first music title one, I think, and also our best one.
is really good.
Yes.
I will say
proud
all
of
of our music titles actually do tie into the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
So if you don't know the song, just listen to the song. Listen to whatever song our
Just
title is.
Google
And
the lyrics and then somehow do that thing that people who like read minds do and just make it fit.
Yeah, you can make anything fit to anything. I'm looking at our titles right now,
Yeah.
and only a couple weird ones jump out.
Pompeii was really good.
Yeah, Pompeii was Jacob's idea, which was my second favorite one after Hurt by Nine Inch Nails. I do all the mid ones, and it's usually because I have to come up with the title right before we publish.
yeah. And we usually I bet it's probably like 3:00 in the morning. You're like, for the love of God, I just want to go to sleep. I'm so tired of listening to these two guys' voices.
Do you guys remember when we did an intro once and then never did it again?
What do you mean? When did we do an intro?
It was the
your intro thing. Yeah, your legal.
this podcast is not, does not represent whatever. Blah,
Oh,
blah,
that was a
blah.
funny little gag.
I thought it was funny, except Stu slowed it down and my voice sounded fucked up.
You slowed your voice down.
No, I deepened my voice.
You're George Takei in it.
I did my best George Takei impression.
I did not slow it down.
Oh, maybe it was the mic problem.
Yeah, that was all you. I don't know what you're talking about.
You did slow it down though.
We can do more intros as long as they're very good and we record more ahead so we have time to actually edit them.
That's the problem.
I like that.
Oh, we were so good at the start because I remember we'd make jokes about how far ahead we had recorded in episodes. We'd be like, "Yeah, wow, that was something that just happened and didn't just happen 3 weeks ago."
Now we do just in time recording.
Now we literally
we recorded
day
the same
before.
day we're releasing.
Yeah, same day. God, we've become so lazy.
We do Azure VM just in time recording.
Our second worst title, I won't say the worst one because it's throwing shade on one of my co-hosts here.
You can say
Our
it.
second worst one is Watch Me Explode, which I just did because I thought it was funny and no one else is going to get the joke of it being the code in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 to unlock every single character in God mode, while also being a reference to the AC/DC song, which does fit what the episode is.
It did,
But
yeah.
No,
I'm
you
sure
can
it's very confusing.
say the worst one.
The worst one is Speak Softly, which
Yeah, that is the worst
Is-
one. I would agree with that.
I liked that one. I didn't come up with that one. I will like, I'm not the one that liked that title because I came up with it. I don't remember which one of us came up with it. I'll be 100% honest with you. But
I think it was me.
oh, damn.
that was our most exciting episode, and it's such a boring title.
I thought
And
it was a pretty-
mostly breaks our chain of music reference. I'm sure there's a song called Speak Softly by someone, but that was not an intentional choice, and I hate it.
I don't know. I think it sounds kind of cool. I think it's a cool contrast between the stuff that occurred and, usually say speak softly, carry big stick, which is, I think, probably why
I think we
called it
should.
that.
I think if we put ellipses at the end, it would have been better. If it was speak softly, ... then people would be like, and carry a big stick.
Yeah,
I
but
don't get
everyone,
it. You threw a shovel.
yeah, it's a big stick, though.
It's
It's a big stick with a knife at the end, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that. I like how, it's a very ominous sounding title to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think that's why I was okay with it at the time, because to me it sounded very ominous. But in retrospect, looking back, I was like, "What episode is this?" When I see it, and then I read the description, I'm like, "Oh, that was my favorite episode."
Every gun is just a big stick that also shoots little sticks. Yeah. So I want to talk about that. So the reason I thought of Speak Softly, because like that episode we were supposed to be negotiating, so the idea is it's supposed to be all bluff, all threats. Nothing was supposed to go violent.
Yeah.
And then everything went violent.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
No, I think
thought-
I personally like that title a lot.
I've called it "Shake It Off" (parentheses Taylor's version), and I think that would have been a better title.
That would have been kind of humorous for a not very funny episode, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our least funny episode, but also my favorite until episode 20, which was both funny and awesome.
Yeah, we were
So
spitting
Yeah.
hot fire last
I
episode.
liked episode 20 a lot.
that is our new floor. Every episode has to be better than that. So
Yeah,
We're
good
in
luck, everyone.
big trouble.
Except for this one, because this one's definitely not going to be as good.
Oh, we could have called it. So I'm just looking through my playlist, and I just scroll to this one, and it just jumps out to me because it's kind of a menacing sounding title, but it actually has relevant. It's kind of relevant too, and it is "Familiar Patterns" by Pup.
Save it.
Oh,
Write it
I
down.
love Pup. Yeah.
Save
That-
it down. Write it down.
That's a great one for that. I'm going to go rechange the title of episode.
Rechange.
10.
It's just change. Stu.
No, rechange.
It's not rechange. Did you change it before?
Yeah. To a bad title. It used to be called episode 10. And then it got called the worst title, which
That's
is
fucked
Speak
up.
Softly.
It's fucked up, dude. Maybe we should just go back to just numbers.
That's what one of my that's a good question. I don't think we got this one, but one of my favorite podcasts does that, which is Empty Bowl, which is a meditative podcast about cereal.
Cereal.
Yeah, not cereal, the original OG podcast, but cereal, the crunchy breakfast food that you
What
know
the
and
hell?
love.
Crunchy and or soggy.
It is very relaxing. They just talk about cereal. It's the two most knowledgeable people on cereal of all time, and there's good, soft ocean sounds in the background. I listened to 20 episodes while flying over the Atlantic Ocean one time, and it was wonderful.
So,
I don't even eat cereal very much, but I still find it incredibly interesting just because they're so knowledgeable about it. I find it very fun. So
Our
everyone should listen to
podcast
that.
also has soft ocean sounds.
Yeah.
You have
And
me
ocean
gasping
whispers.
in anytime I even slightly get stressed. I roll my dice and go,
So what podcast do you guys like? That was my recommendation. We're allowed to give recommendations this episode because it's not on the official normal chain of episodes, so we don't need to get paid for it.
I listen to many podcasts, but my favorite probably three. My original podcast, the podcast that got me into podcast, was The Weekly Planet. It's an Australian podcast about movies and comics and TV shows and video games. It's very good. It's very fun. That then introduced me to the Anti-Donna podcast, which is a podcast by a Australian comedy sketch group who also has a YouTube channel and also has a Netflix show and also has a show on the Australian Broadcasting Channel.
And their guest episode with Hello from Magic Tavern is one of my favorite Hello from Magic Tavern episodes.
It's so
very good.
funny. It's very funny. It doesn't make any sense, but it's very funny. And then my latest and probably favoritist podcast is Dungeons and Daddies, which is a better role-playing game podcast than ours.
I still need to listen to Dungeons and Daddies.
It's very
I didn't know we were allowed to give 3, so I'll give 2 more real quick, which is Hey Riddle Riddle is amazing. It's mostly improv comedy, but they also do some riddles. A third one, I will also listen to 20 Billion Podcasts, but for something D&D related that's way different, listen to Sitcom D&D, which is technically a D&D podcast, but they frame it all as sitcom episodes and kind of plan out like the theme for the episode. So the actual mechanics of the game are by far the least important thing. It's almost entirely improving a sitcom episode with various dice rolls, but it's very interesting and a super different way to play in an entertaining way. So I think it's a good thing to watch for people who get kind of mired down in mechanics and the importance of things like that.
So, role-playing game podcasts. My favorite is the original Glass Cannon podcast. It's a Pathfinder 1E podcast, and that's was the first role-playing podcast I listened to. I liked that one because it felt very authentic to real D&D compared to something
People actually playing it, yeah.
Yeah, it's just compared to something like Critical Role, which is very kind of staged. It's not staged. Critical Role is very much them really playing D&D, but the production value in Critical Role is so high.
And yeah, and the skill of the players, they're very thematic.
Yeah, because they're all trained voice actors. So the Glass Cannon podcast, the original one, they have a bunch out now. I haven't really listened to very many of them because they kind of get more and more produced as they go, kind of more like Critical Role. But the original one, it's just a bunch of guys and they play D&D. They make the same dumb mistakes. They say the same dumb jokes that we all do. They all just randomly start talking about random things going on in their day. It just feels very authentic to actually playing D&D, and I liked it a lot. The first podcast that actually got me into podcasts was a podcast called the One Piece podcast, which
Oh my God.
I loved One Piece back in the day. I was a huge One Piece fan, and I listened to that podcast all the damn time. If you really like One Piece, it's a great podcast. I love the hosts. I still listen to it every once in a while, even though I don't actually really keep up with it very much these days, just because I liked their banter. But I'm not going to really count that one in my 3 because that's such a specific and niche podcast that you have to be into a very specific and niche thing to do it. So
You have to like stretchy people.
Exactly, which I very much do. But the two podcasts I think I would recommend actually for people to listen to, unless you like One Piece and then watch that one because it's good, is there's a podcast called Bits and Bricks, which is a Lego podcast. It's kind of like a mini series. It wasn't really like I think it's already over, but it was like some big Lego folks that were behind several of the original Lego games, and it's a podcast about them talking about the production of those games and how they're made and behind the scenes stuff, and it's really interesting. If you like Legos and you like the Lego games like Lego Racers, Lego Rock Raiders, that kind of stuff, that it was a good
Lego Star Wars.
Yeah, it was that's a good one. And another thing I'm going to reveal about myself here is I'm a big fan of the SCP Foundation. Ever since I was in middle school, I've been reading those little articles.
Oh, I do know about this. It's the spooky one. It's spooky Wikipedia. It's fake spooky Wikipedia.
Yeah, fake spooky Wikipedia. It's like the X-Files on crack.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that.
There's a podcast that I like called SCP Real to Real, which is an easy listening one because each episode is only like between 5 to 10 minutes, because it's basically just him going through and reading and talking about one SCP article. Some of them can be really long, some of them are really short, so it's just a really bite-sized, digestible one to listen to just while you're going. And it's produced pretty regularly, and it's less the pop. There's like a ton of SCPs that are super popular that everybody knows about, and a lot of these are just he just picks ones that sound cool and interesting. So
Nice. That's how I read them.
yeah, just random roll it. Sometimes you get some real stinkers if you do that, though.
Yes. Okay, are there any final questions, comments, ideas, theories?
Let's see. I wrote down some. Let's pull out my phone here.
I'm going to hate editing this so much.
I'm gonna love listening.
Did you find your list, Jacob?
I didn't. I don't know where the fuck my
Okay.
questions went.
Okay,
Oh,
well, they'll have
bummer.
to wait till next 20 episodes.
I had a note that was called "Questions for Stu." Where the fuck did they go? Well, I guess I have no more questions because my questions have deleted themselves from existence.
Well, then this will be the last time anyone hears the actual Stu talking for 20 more episodes, and I will go back to the character playing as Stu for all of our recording.
The artist formerly known as Stu.
That made sense.
Yeah,
That was good.
I'm going to have to cut out a bunch anyway. Might as well cut them.
Oh my god.
But we'll see you all in the actual episodes. Hopefully this was not absolutely terrible, and I'm able to edit into something listenable in a reasonable amount of time.
I'm
We will see.
excited to take a listen to it because I bet it's going to be great.
I can't wait to see what we said last week because I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I remember there's a lot of us shitting on D&D.
Yeah, we take back all of that. We all love D&D.
Wizards of the Coast, please send us money. We'll sponsor us, please.
No, we're gonna have to send them money.
Oh, fuck, that's right. Yeah.
So who has a dramatic way to end this episode?
You're one of them.
We can't use the same cliffhanger 2 episodes. Stu is one of them.
Love you, bye.